A work spouse, a work wife, a work husband. Is it okay? We're going to talk about it a little bit more here today on Speechless Reactions. I was scrolling through TikTok, and while I was also trying to make sure that people know to like, subscribe, share, comment, all that fun stuff for my own content, I found this thing and I'd heard of it before. I'd heard people say it before, and I just thought it was worth talking about. It's the idea of a work wife or a work husband. So take a look and a listen to this TikTok here that kind of, I don't know, maybe it's hyperbolizing it a little bit, but it's still a real thing. Let's talk about it right here.
Jim, oh my gosh, I'm so happy we're doing this. So we're gonna go to that place over there. No one else, unfortunately, in the office could show up. So let's go. This is gonna be so fun. I'm so happy. You look so good. So happy we're doing this. This is like weird seeing you outside the office. Wanna hold hands? Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Such a gentleman. No wonder why your wife is obsessed with you. So we could share food together. My husband doesn't share food with me whenever we go out. I'll be home soon, okay? All right, love you. Hubby is home. He misses me. It's so crazy. I tell my husband all the time, like, have a work husband, but like, don't get jealous. Like, you tell your wife too. Do you have any tea on Linda in accounting? Because she is so rude to me. I feel like she's always jealous. What do you?
Okay, so the idea of a work wife or a work husband is that you have this person who is at work with you and they are like your spouse at work. It's called like having a work spouse. Do you have a work spouse? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious if people have, if this is like a real thing that other people have. But as one of my faithful commenters pointed out, work wives are the key to a happy divorce. And at least from everything I can see, I couldn't agree more. This trend has taken over, and it's been something for a while. But it's also caused quite the division. I'm not going to sit here for a lot of these like stupid trends that I find. I sit here and I tell you, man, like a lot of people my age agree with this. No, not everybody agrees with this. But then you have articles like this one. This is a real article in which, and I'll pull it up here. It's from hospitalityinsights.ehl. Um, and it's quite interesting. Here's the title of it. It's why do we all need a work wife? The not so new workplace relationship. That's actually what this says here. And so if you look, what is a work wife? The concept of a work wife, work husband, or work spouse has become increasingly common in the American workplace. And though it is hard to define, Marilyn Whitman, a professor of business studies at the University of Alabama, explains what a work spouse that a work spouse is a platonic, intimate relationship between two colleagues that is characterized by high levels of disclosure and support, trust, loyalty, and respect. Sound familiar? Quote, at first, it was the same as any other office friendship. You'd eat lunch together and joke around in your free time. It wasn't long before you both had an understanding of each other's issues at work. Through it all, you've developed a kind of language that you two understand. You talk about your outside lives, but sometimes a look is all you need to get away from office dramas and understand what the other is thinking. The work spouse phenomenon is not new and has been featured in many popular television sitcoms, dramas, talk shows, and movies like Law and Order, The Steve Harvey Show, and the biopic on Steve Jobs. Such portrayals of workplace relationships have therefore become an increasingly interesting field of study in communication, psychology, human and organizational. Look, here's the thing is no matter what, I think this is disrespectful to your spouse or partner. And what this really is, and people are going to sit here and they're going to say, Kevin, you're blowing it so far out of proportion. Kevin, you're too religious. You're too conservative. They're going to tell you that. But call me old-fashioned. Do it. I'd actually like it if you called me old-fashioned. Call me old-fashioned. But I believe that the terms wife and husband have significant meaning. And it's earned to some extent. I mean, it's not just granted to you. You earn it through having a significant bond and promising a significant commitment to another person. And to some level, while smaller than other things that happen, what this does is it denigrates the idea of marriage, among other things. But I want to talk a little bit more about, before I get into some of that analysis. Let's talk about the benefits of having a work wife. It can be a powerful asset to navigating the workplace. Having a work wife can be a great sounding board for ideas. Having a work wife can be an invaluable source of moral support. Having a work wife can help you maximize your productivity. That sounds weird. Finally, having a work wife can make work more meaningful. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have like relationships with people at your work, but to use such a sanctimonious term, a term that has such weight to it as wife or husband, it at a minimum, if it is not actually indicative of some level of infidelity, which I believe it to be. I believe that in a way, this constitutes a level of emotional infidelity, if not actual physical. It's at least an emotional infidelity where it says to some extent, "Hey, like this is my person. If there's even the slightest hint of an issue in my marriage, this is the person I'm going to go to." That kind of seems to be the vibe I get from this, to use my own generational term. Um, but if it's not actually that act of infidelity, then it's one of these two things. It's either elevating the idea of a casual friendship to the level of marriage, or it's lowering the idea of marriage to the level of a casual friendship. I'll say that one more time. If having a work spouse is not an actual act of infidelity, which I think it is, but if it's not, then it's either elevating a casual friendship to more than it's worth to the level of marriage, or it's denigrating, decreasing the level of marriage and the worth of marriage to that of a casual friendship. Either of which are blasphemous to the actual holy matrimony that is the bond of man and wife, of husband and wife. The Atlantic, which is a predominantly liberal publication, actually does look down on this idea, but not for good reason. In a headline from The Atlantic, they say the bizarre relationship of a work husband and a work wife. Subheading: the work marriage is a strange response to our anxieties about mixed gender friendships, heightened by norms of a professional environment. And so, what The Atlantic says is a work wife and a work husband isn't so great, but it's bad because of sexism. Because our society has this weird thing about being friends, having platonic friendships with men and women. And that's a controversial topic for me. I grew up with sisters. I have friends that are women, but the friends that I have that are women, I'm very close, or for the most part, I'm very close with their significant others as well. And pretty much all of them, my girlfriend knows and is in some way acquainted with. So I'm not saying that men and women can't be friends, um, but there is that general tension behind it. And I don't think it's uncommon or unnatural. I think when we strive for a monogamous society, or we strive to have monogamy, when it's kind of human inclination to have a certain level of protection over your significant other, over your boyfriend, girlfriend, your husband or wife, yeah, you're going to be skeptical of the platonic relationships that are had. The fact of the matter is are going to need to be some level of workplace relationships, and likely those were going to exist between men and women. But in the grand scheme of things, women in the workforce is a relatively new concept. Now, not a new concept like it's in my lifetime, but it's a relatively new concept in the idea that women only really entered the workforce in modern America significantly in large numbers in the 1940s. So the entire idea of having a work wife or a work husband is pretty new. So much new is the irony in the foundations of the terminology. According to Timothy Noah, who wrote in Slate, the term work wife and work husband and work marriage entered the national lexicon in 1987 when the writer David Owen, who was also from The Atlantic, who I just said was criticizing the term, he wrote an Atlantic essay describing a particular platonic intimacy through the terms of work wife and work husband. This is a new concept, but it's one that we should squash pretty quickly. Because there are likely going to be people of the opposite sex that work with your husband or your wife. And boundaries clearly need to be set. One of which that I would clearly set is by no means is the colleague of my future wife, is he in any way her work husband. And if he were to ever say that, he'd have a lot of questions to answer. And maybe a pretty protective response. I don't want to make any direct threats right now because who knows how that could serve me in the future, but I had to make it known. That's how it would be. But what do you guys think? Am I totally crazy on this one? I've seen a lot of Reddit threads. There's some people that would tell me I'm a terrible person for being protective and denouncing this entire idea of having a work spouse. I mean, if you look biblically, it's about one man and one woman, and it's insulting. It's insulting not only to the religious aspect of a marriage, but it's insulting to your wife or husband, that you would call anybody else that, even with the precursor of work in front of it. It's absolutely vile. It really is. But like I said, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff.